What's up, my wizards? It's Dev, back again from Strictly Better MTG. I'm going to do a little thing today about the top 7 decks of all times in the Magic. So a little disclaimer, this is like top 7 decks that I've had a lot of fun playing, and like some of them are really dominant decks, no doubt. But this is a very subjective list this time around. This isn't specifically top 7 most amazing dominant decks that ever standarded or moderned or whatever. This is just sort of the top 7 decks that I've had the most enjoyment with since I've started playing Magic, which is a really, really long time. So it's going to be sort of throughout the ages. So let's kick it off with number 7, of course. That's the way we do these things. Number 7 is probably already controversial. If you were going to pick 7 decks that were just like the best decks that you could imagine, this probably wouldn't be on your list, but it's on mine. It's sort of an honorable mention. Human Reanimator from a couple of years ago. Yeah, like this is the first deck I played after a short hiatus. About 2 years. I missed Shards block and I missed Zendikar block, and a lot of people are like, those are the worst 2 that you can miss, and they're probably right when they say that. But yeah, it sucks that actually sucks that I missed Zendikar. But in any case, yeah, Human Reanimator was the first thing I played when I came back, started to do FNMs and stuff. And it's just like the most fun thing ever. Infinite combos are fun. And if you're not interested, if you haven't seen it around, or if you're new, sort of, you got Angel of Glory's Rise, which when it comes into play, returns all your humans from the graveyard to the battlefield. You, yeah, you spend the early game basically grizzly salvaging and faithless looting cards into your graveyard, and then you unburial rights the Angel of Glory's Rise, and you get all your humans back when you do that. You get Fiend Hunter and Cartel Aristocrat. You put your own Angel of Glory's Rise under the Fiend Hunter, then you sacrifice the Fiend Hunter to Cartel Aristocrat. That causes the Angel to come back into play, and you get all your humans back again, and you can just do crazy shit with, like, you can get infinite 1/1 flyers with Doom Traveler, infinite mana with Burning Tree, infinite Board Wrath due to Fiend Hunter and his infamous Fiend Hunter trick that you can do. So just really fun. And there was a junk Reanimator version of this going around at the same time that just used all the best creatures in the format, like Thragtusk and what was she? Restoration Angel, who is retarded, and Obsidat, a couple of other things. Angel of Serenity, who is awesome. Were in that deck. And the junk version was way better, but for just pure fun and like the look on your opponent's face, Human Reanimator was just miles above. It was a really fun deck to play. So it gets number 7 on my list. And a lot of those are like that. They're good, but they hold a special place in my heart. And yeah, I do. I have notes. Sorry for that, YouTube. Forgive me, Father, for I have notes. Number 6, and this is a competitive deck, but again, people are going to be like, boo, when I say it, but number 6 is Affinity. Affinity. Super infamous, I know, but, I'm going to go ahead and apologize for being that guy. I played Affinity, but to our credit, there were a couple people I knew who played. To our credit, it was either like play Affinity or lose to Affinity back then. You kind of had to. And it was a deck that made you feel like a professional Magic player. Like, I think contrary to its reputation, it got a lot of people into Magic, sort of, because it was one of those decks that built itself, and if you bought a little bit of product, you could easily put a workable Affinity deck together and just start feeling really good about yourself. It was one of the last mechanics that Wizards really didn't have a handle on, like failed to see the potential in the ability, and broken abilities are fun to play. Like, how fun is it to play Treasure Cruise for 1 mana right now, you know? You can't do that in Modern anymore, sorry, guys. But yeah, how fun is it to play Treasure Cruise for 1 mana? Affinity is essentially that feeling, you know? You had your Skull Clamp, one of the more broken cards ever, Arcbound Ravager, Cranial Plating, Ornithopter was good in this deck, Thoughtcast, Shrapnel Blast. This deck was a Shrapnel Blast to play, puns. But yeah, Affinity, until like Tooth and Nail came along, was just completely unstoppable, and it was a lot of fun to play on top of that. And there were some complaints that the format was just too Affinity, and that's probably true, but playing it was fun. Even playing the Mirror was really fun, because it's fast games, you know. So I think it deserves a spot on the all-time list. That's my number 6. Number 5 probably should be a little higher up on the list, but I've got better stuff for me that I want to get to. So number 5 is the deck. I just bumped the table. Number 5 is the deck. For those of you unfamiliar, because it's a really old deck, this is the first professional deck that a lot of Magic players saw. This is a blue-white control deck that set the standard for oddly enough. It set the standard for how control decks would be built from then on out. It introduced the concept of a win condition. It only ran like 4 Sarah Angels and then a couple of mountains for fireballs, for like 20-point fireball. And yeah, the rest of the deck, outside of that, was removal and counter magic and protection in the form of Moat and Maze of Ith to stop your opponent's creatures from attacking. And that sounds pretty familiar to a thing that we see an awful lot in Standard over the last 20 plus years, and that's just any control deck. And it sort of shaped the way that Standard would be. You know, how aggro is kind of a response to control, mid-range is a response to aggro, the sort of paper, rock, scissors paradigm of MTG, and that's a lot of that is due to the success of the deck by, I think, Brian Weissman was his name. I really hope I'm not wrong, but yeah, circa like 1994 or 5, this really old school, but we have a lot of how we think of competitive Magic to thank this deck for. So yeah, number 5 easily, I would say. Number 4 is Fairies, which is Fairies is really good still in Modern. It's not a terrible deck, and I played Fairies for 6 months in Standard. I played blue-black Fairies, was really well accustomed to it, loved the deck, and honestly, it probably wasn't fair. Like in our team at the time, I really wasn't the best player. The best player though played Toast at the time, you know, Cruel Control, that kind of thing, and I couldn't have piloted that deck at the time. And the other best player on our team played Swans, and then he played Revelar Combo because he's hilarious. And I couldn't have piloted either of those decks either. So I think Fairies is where I needed to be at the time. Anyway, but quick Pro Tour qualifier story about Fairies. I'll run through this real quick because it's a lesson for a lot of people, and for me it was. But I played Blue-Black Fairies, like I said, for like 6 months in Lorem Block. And the night before a big Pro Tour qualifier that we've been labbing for like 3 weeks at the time, which we didn't usually do. We went to PTQs, but we didn't honestly train for them too much. But this one we really wanted to do well in. And like 2 nights before the event started, I made a change. Dun, dun, dun. You're not supposed to do that. I wasn't really aware of that rule at the time, but I put in white for momentary blink. Because it's really fun in my thought process. It'd be really fun to blink Mistbind Click or Vendilion Click or Spellstutter Sprite or any of those guys. And I screwed the mana base all up and ended up going like 1 and 2 before dropping, and that turn was terrible. So let that be a lesson to you. Don't ever change something, especially that you're very accustomed to, with just, you know, a night or 2 before you want to go to a big event. Or even an F&M, like, just don't, like, make changes without really testing them or anything. And another lesson there, and it's a hard one to learn, is that there are Magic players that play the game for 18 to 20 hours a day for years at a time, and if Momentary Blink was good in Fairies, it would have been broken months before I tried it. You know, I'm no Zvi Malshevitz at the time. And so, yeah, it's not like, you're probably not, as an F&M player, and I don't know who you are watching this video right now, it's just as someone that goes to PTQs and Grand Prix and stuff like that, you're probably not going to be the one to break the format. I mean, there's always, you know, the next Brad Nelson or Craig Wesco is right around the corner. You don't know who's going to break the format or who's going to be Rookie of the Year this year, who's going to be Ari Lax, you know. But likely, it is best to look to players who have done this for a living, honestly, and someone by then would have been like, Momentary Blink is really good in Fairies, but I thought I was that guy, and I wasn't, and very often that you're not that guy. So. But Fairies is still really good because, like I said, Spellstutter Sprite, Vendilion Click, Mistbind Click, Bitter Blossom, the thing, the counterspell, Familiar's Roost, that's the thing, that returns a creature to your hand so that you can then do another stupid enter the battlefield thing with it. So Fairies, number 4, I've had a lot of enjoyment. It's still a deck to this day. So number 3, we're in the top 3 now, and this could be probably the best deck of all time, really. But I've got stuff that I just enjoyed more, a little ahead of it. So number 3 is Tinker. Now at Worlds in Brussels, and I don't remember the years, like 98 or 99. The finals was Tinker versus Tinker, and the top 8 was 6 Tinker decks. So Tinker was just super dominant for a good time there, and it's just super dumb. It powers out with Tinker and like Grim Monolith, Voltaic Key, and a couple of other fast mana things, Metalworker, a second or third turn Phyrexian Colossus, and then you just win off of the back of that because it's really good to play an 8/8 on the second turn. And then you can back it up with counter magic and draw. You get a lot of card advantage in this deck. And it used sort of a lot of cards from the Power 9 of that era. The Power 9 of that era was hilarious. You had your Lotus Petal and your Scroll Rack. You had Chrome Mox, Tolarian Academy, Gia's Cradle, Grim Monolith, Voltaic Key, Frantic Search. I mean, and I think that's 9 right there, actually. And the deck used like 8 of those 9 cards. So, bound to be ridiculous, and Tinker was a force forever. And it's still fun to like proxy up and play Tinker because it reminds me of like the Gunslinger decks. If you remember that term, you're old. From the very early days of Magic that went on the second turn, or first turn even sometimes. And Tinker was that deck. But at the same time, it's infamous for starting a combo winner, the old men call it, which frustrated a lot of players, and a lot of people left Magic. And then the next block, Mercadian Masks, was equally frustrating, with Lin Civi being what it was, and High Tide was like a return to the days of Stasis, and it was just not a good time for a lot of people. But honestly, Tinker was a really fun deck to play, especially in retrospect. Seeing what we have now, it was great. So yeah, number 2 is the deck that I'll gush about the most. I will say that. We don't have much time left here, but I'm going to try to get this all in. Number 2 is a deck that's probably not on anybody else's top 7 list, and that is Yawgmoth's Bargain Combo. That might be on a couple of your top 7s, but it's not on many. Yawgmoth's Bargain Combo was the first deck that exposed me to the possibilities of this game. And the first deck that was handed to me that was a professional deck, and like I felt like I was piloting it more than I was playing it. It was the first deck that it wasn't just like creature based and whatever, control or something like that, you know. Every part feeds into the next part, and it's so synergistic, and it just like fascinated me. And I played it over and over and over, goldfishing and playing in tournaments at the local place, Outer Limits at the time, in Warner Robins. Anyway, I played this deck a lot for a long time, and it made me a much better Magic player. And the way it works, if you don't remember this deck, or if you weren't around, really quickly, see how quickly I can prattle this off, is you try to Academy Rector second turn with Dark Ritual, sacrifice it to Phyrexian Tower, you go get Yawgmoth's Bargain, you start drawing, and you get Scourge Familiar, which allows you to discard cards for black mana. You discard all your chaff, and you draw into Soul Feast, which is 4 damage to them, you gain 4 life, which allows you to draw more cards, and discard more cards for mana. You play all 4 Soul Feasts in the deck for 16 damage, and then you Yawgmoth's Will, allowing you to play another Soul Feast out of the graveyard for your 20th damage. And it wins on the second or third turn, and it was just like, to this day, it's probably the most fun I've ever had playing Standard. For my money, the most fun you can have playing Magic is probably all the various ways you can cube draft, but for Standard, this deck was easily the most fun I've ever had. It was I call it the first evolution of me playing Magic. It made me a much better player. It led to me wanting to know more. And I learned about little things that we take for granted like now. Playing things at the end of your opponent's turn, and curve, and value, the concept of value, and card advantage, and evaluating the metagame, and all of these things came from me playing this deck. And I wouldn't be the player I am now without having been exposed to this thing forever ago, you know. So Yawgmoth's Bargain Combo, probably not on many people's list, but it's on mine. If you're interested, it's probably still a list somewhere on the internet. Go proxy it up and play it. It's a blast. It's a blast. And that leads us to number 1. We have one more here. I was trying to keep it under 15 minutes, but we are at that mark, like right now. So let's just try to run through this really quick. Number 1 deck of all time, in my estimation, is Sly. Sly, and I know people are like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But Sly, I actually think there's an argument for this being the best deck ever, for many purposes, not just sentimental or personal. Sly, since Tempest Block has been around in some form or fashion since Jackal Pup and Curse Scroll, Shock, Lightning Bolt, all that. And Wizards has ensured that it's a thing, that it's a deck type with premium 1-drops in red and crazy direct damage that gets like better in every block. And it's like people, when a new set comes out, control players are like, this card is for us. And red is another deck that's like that. Red players are like, this card is for us. Like when people saw Monastery Swiftspear especially and Stoke the Flames, are like, this is the red deck wins card, you know. And Wizards make sure that this is a deck, and it's notorious for being very good at the beginning of formats, and especially lately, Big Red has been a thing for some time. And you just can't ever count it out. It's very good for newer players and for players that are on a budget that actually want to compete. And it's really good up at F&M no matter what. You know, this is probably the deck that has won more packs at card shops than like any other deck, honestly, if you want to put it that way. But people say like, oh, aggro is the most brain dead type that you can play, and honestly, you learn a lot playing aggro, especially these kind of mono red decks that are all in, because they teach you when and when not to be all in, and what guys you can get in and what guys you can spare, what guys you have to block with. They teach you whether to go to the dome or to kill a creature with your direct damage. They teach you combat tricks. They teach you all kinds of things that you have to be a smart Magic player to ascertain correctly. And people need to play a deck like this to sort of really evolve. It's not entirely brain dead. And a lot of people, when they first start playing Magic, they just put all their best cards together. And these weenie decks, they teach you the concept of curve, tempo, how to evaluate combat situations correctly. And Sly has been a big thing in Magic in almost every format for 15 years. And Sly integral to Magic, and Wizards wouldn't keep printing cards for this deck if it weren't sort of something they wanted to do, something they respect and understand is a necessary archetype. So I give Sly #1 all day. I've played it a lot over my career and many different versions of it. It's always fun. It's always fun, and it beats Control. And I'm typically a Control player, but this, I respect it because it can beat Control a lot. And yeah, so that is my top 7 best decks of all time. And yeah, a lot of that was pretty subjective, which I'm not going to apologize for. We might end up doing like a top 7 most dominant decks ever, and a couple of these might repeat, but we'll see. Number 7 was Human Reanimator. Number 6 was Affinity. Sorry again for playing that. Number 5 was The Deck, which is blue-white control. The first time we ever saw that happen. Number 4 is Fairies. Fairies. Number 3 is Tinker, one of the best decks ever, probably the best dominant thing. Number 2 is Bargain Combo for purely sentimental reasons. And number 1 is Sly, which I think you could actually make an argument for. Sorry again, guys, for the sort of longish video here. I apologize. That's me pointing to the timer on YouTube Capture. Anyway, my name is Devin from Strictly Better MTG. It's our goal to make you strictly better. Let us know how you felt about this. What are your favorite decks? How much do you disagree with me? And how much are you like, Sly? What the dude, you're terrible at this. Just let me know. Again, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends and your comic style people and the people that you know in the world, because I don't know, this is something that I really enjoy doing and I want to keep doing it, and I appreciate all you guys for watching. It means a lot to us, and yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll see what we're gonna do. There's set reviews coming up, man, because Dragons is coming out really super soon. So yeah, that was my super soon phase. We'll see you guys next time. Appreciate you joining us. Later, guys.